Greetings, lore masters. Tonight, our chronicle covers the most treacherous investment portfolio in the history of Nirn, the housing market. We are venturing away from the battlefields and the dungeons for a moment to look at the places where our heroes attempt to rest their weary heads. We often romanticize the life of an adventurer, the glory, the gold, the enchanted weaponry, but we rarely discuss the domestic nightmares that await them when they finally decide to put down roots. In Tamriel, a fixer-upper doesn't just mean fixing a leaky roof or repainting the walls. It usually implies exorcising a Daedric influence, or scraping the remains of the previous tenant off the floorboards. The allure of property ownership is strong, especially after spending months camping in the rain, or sleeping in the common rooms of noisy taverns. You see a listing, the price is suspiciously low, and you think you've found a steal. But in this world, if a deal looks too good to be true, it's probably because a necromancer is living in the basement. Let's be honest, you probably wouldn't survive a mortgage application in the Imperial City without a high mercantile skill and a charm spell, let alone the horrors hiding behind the front door. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're settling in, let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is in your corner of the world. It's always fascinating to see how far these stories travel. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Our tour begins on the Gold Coast of Cyrodiil, in the beautiful seaside city of Anvil. It is a city of whitewashed stone, red tile roofs, and the calming sound of the Abyssinian Sea lapping against the docks. It feels like a paradise, a retirement haven for weary generals and successful merchants. The sun seems to shine brighter here, casting long warm shadows across the cobblestones. In the year 433 of the Third Era, during the height of the Oblivion crisis, a particular property hit the market that caught the eye of the hero of Kvatch. Standing prominently within the city walls is Benirus Manor. From the outside, it is a magnificent structure, a testament to classic imperial architecture with a touch of the exotic flair Anvil is known for. It has high walls, a grand balcony, and a location that screams opulence. Yet, the locals give it a wide berth. They cross the street to avoid walking in its shadow. If you were to ask around the Chapel of Dibella or the local guild halls, whispers of cursed and monstrous would float back to you. But for an adventurer flush with loot from plundering Ayleid ruins, the warnings are often drowned out by the prospect of a bargain. And what a bargain it is! You find the owner, a nervous, sweaty Imperial named Velwyn Benirus, drinking away his sorrows at the Count's arms. He doesn't look like a man in possession of a prime real estate asset. He looks like a man haunted. He speaks quickly, eyes darting toward the door, desperate to offload the deed. He tells you he inherited the place from his grandfather, Lorgren Benirus, but he has no interest in keeping it. He offers it to you for a mere 5,000 gold. Here is where we encounter our first core in-game fact. 5,000 gold for a fully furnished manor in a major city is effectively theft. In the economy of Cyrodiil, you might pay nearly that much for a high-end enchanted cuirass, or a stack of Grand Soul gems. To buy an entire mansion for the price of a few glass daggers should be the first red flag. But the hero of Kvatch, perhaps blinded by the allure of a dedicated storage space for their hoarding tendencies, signs the deed. Velwyn takes the gold, practically sprinting out of the city before the ink is dry, muttering about getting as far away from Anvil as possible. You take the key, feeling a surge of pride. You walk up to your new front door, slide the iron key into the lock and step inside. The interior does not match the exterior. The air is stale, thick with the smell of rot and centuries of stagnation. Cobwebs drape like funereal veils over the furniture. The tapestry is moth-eaten. The wood is warped. It's dark, unnaturally so, even during the day. But you tell yourself it just needs a little sweeping, maybe a light spell or two. You head upstairs to the master bedroom, eager for your first night of sleep in your own home. But sleep does not come easily in Benirus Manor. As soon as you close your eyes, the temperature plummets. The silence of the house is broken not by the settling of timber, but by wailing. It starts low, a mournful cry echoing from the walls themselves, and then it screams. You wake to find yourself under attack. Ethereal spirits, ghosts of the damned, float through the floorboards and the ceiling. They are restless, angry, and they want you out. This is the buyer's remorse phase of the quest. You realise that Velwyn left out a significant detail. His grandfather, Lorgren Benirus, wasn't just an eccentric old man. He was a powerful necromancer who was sealed inside the manor by the Mages Guild decades ago. The locals didn't just dislike him, they feared him. And now, you're locked in a house with his victims, or perhaps his servants. One of the more obscure lore tidbits regarding this manor involves the Tome of Unlife. While many players rush through the quest to cleanse the house, those who stop to read the scraps of paper and journals scattered about discover the depth of Lorgren's depravity. He wasn't simply practicing necromancy, he was attempting to achieve a perfect immortality, binding his soul to the mortal plane in a way that bypassed the natural decay of lichdom. The Tome of Unlife, found within the manor, suggests that Lorgren was experimenting with anatomical binding, specifically the use of his own skeletal hand as a physical anchor. This detail often gets lost in the chaos of fighting ghosts, but it implies that the house itself acts as a massive phylactery, a containment vessel for his spirit. After surviving the night, or perhaps fleeing into the street in your undergarments, you realise you need answers. You track Velwyn down in the Imperial City, where he is trying to drink away the memory of his heritage. He is reluctant, terrified, but eventually confesses. His grandfather isn't just haunting the house, he is still there, but he's trapped behind a sealed portal in the basement, a magical barrier erected by the Mages Guild that only a blood relative of Benirus can open. This leads to one of the most debated moments in the community, the sheer gullibility of the protagonist. To cleanse the house, you must drag Velwyn back to Anvil. He is terrified, shivering as you enter the manor. He stands before the sealed portal in the basement, reciting the incantation to open it. The seal breaks. Velwyn flees again, leaving you to enter the secret sanctum alone. Inside, you find an altar. On the altar lies a skeleton. The voice of Lorgren Benirus echoes in your mind. He sounds reasonable for a dead necromancer. He claims that he is trapped, that he wishes to make amends, and that if you simply retrieve his skeletal hand, which fell off during the chaos of his death and was dragged away by creatures, he can finally rest. Fans still debate whether the hero of Kvatch is canonically incredibly brave or incredibly dim-witted during this exchange. You are effectively being asked by a disembodied voice in a secret necromancy dungeon to reassemble its body. It's the classic blunder of high fantasy. Yet the narrative demands we play along. You venture into the tomb, fight past the guardians, and retrieve the skeletal hand. Returning to the altar, you place the hand back onto the skeleton. The atmosphere shifts instantly. The voice drops its facade of repentance. Lorgren laughs, a dry, rasping sound that scrapes against your mind. "The fools!" he cries. "You have completed the ritual!" He wasn't asking for peace, he was asking for resurrection. Lightning arcs from the altar. The skeleton rises, flesh knitting together in a display of unholy magic, transforming into a lich. The room fills with the cold blue light of the grave. You have just unleashed an ancient evil inside your own basement. This is definitely a violation of the Homeowners Association rules in Anvil. The battle that ensues is frantic. Fighting a lich in the confined space of a basement requires quick reflexes and strong resistance to magic. He hurls spells, summons undead minions, and tries to obliterate the foolish mortal who helped him achieve his final form. But, inevitably, steel and sorcery prevail. You strike Lorgren down, shattering his bones and severing his connection to the plane of the living for good, as his form crumbles into dust. The oppressive atmosphere of the manor lifts, the wailing stops, the cold dissipates, the curse is broken. When you return upstairs, the house has transformed, the rot is gone, the cobwebs have vanished, the furniture is repaired and polished. Benirus Manor is finally the stunning, stately home it appeared to be on the outside. You have a grand dining hall, a spacious bedroom, and a lovely balcony overlooking the street. It is, by all accounts, a magnificent reward for your troubles. However, the memory lingers. Every time you walk down those basement stairs to store a Daedric artifact or a spare suit of armour, you have to look at that altar. You have to remember that just beneath your feet, a man tried to cheat death by consuming the souls of the innocent. You have to remember that you are sleeping in a house that was essentially a battery for dark magic. The purchase of Benirus Manor is a lesson in due diligence. It teaches the adventurer that a low price tag always comes with a hidden cost. In this case, the cost was a battle for your soul and a bit of unpaid exorcism work. it remains one of the most memorable homes in Cyrodiil, not because of its beauty but because of the horrific betrayal woven into its acquisition. It sets a precedent for the rest of our list. In Tamriel, a house is never just a house. It is often a tomb, a trap, or a test. And speaking of traps, we must leave the golden coast of Cyrodiil and travel north to the harsh, freezing winds of Skyrim. If you thought a necromancer in the basement was bad, wait until you see what the Nords of Windhelm have been hiding behind the walls of their most prestigious empty property. The snow may cover the ground, but it cannot hide the scent of blood that permeates our next stop. We trade the golden sunshine of Anvil for the biting chill of Windhelm. This is the oldest city in Skyrim, a fortress of black stone and ice, standing defiant against the harsh elements of Eastmarch. It is a city of kings, of rebellion, and of deep-seated suspicion. The wind howls through the narrow alleyways, carrying with it the snow and the whispers of a city on edge. Here, amidst the political tension of the Civil War, lies a property that makes Benirus Manor look like a delightful summer cottage. We are standing before the heavy wooden doors of Hjerim. Hjerim, which translates to Home of Frost in the ancient tongue, is a grand estate situated in the Valenstrad district, the most affluent part of the city. It neighbours the Temple of Talos and offers easy access to the Palace of the Kings. From the street, it commands respect. It is sturdy, imposing, and noticeably vacant. But unlike the bargain bin pricing of Anvil, acquiring Hjerim is an ordeal in bureaucracy and blood. You cannot simply buy it. You must earn the right to even ask about it, usually by proving your worth to Jarl Ulfric Stormcloak, or, if the tides of war have turned the Imperial Legion. But even after you have gained permission, the steward will hesitate. There is an awkward pause, a clearing of the throat. There was some unpleasantness, they might say. This is the understatement of the era. The unpleasantness they refer to is a string of gruesome serial murders that have plagued the city, with Hjerim sitting at the epicenter of the investigation. This brings us to the core in-game fact. You literally cannot buy this house without becoming involved in a murder investigation. The quest, Blood on the Ice, is inextricably linked to the property. You don't just get a key, you get a crime scene. When you first step inside Hjerim, often before you even officially own it, while investigating the murders, you're not greeted by dust and cobwebs, but by gore. The main hall is a horror show. There are bloodstains soaked deep into the floorboards. There are chests filled with disturbing pamphlets about the Butcher, the moniker given to the killer. But the true horror lies in the hidden room. Tucked away behind a false panel in a wardrobe, you discover a secret chamber. This isn't a panic room or a root cellar, it is an abattoir. Inside, you find an altar covered in bones and flesh. It is here that the necromancer Calixto Corium has been conducting his twisted experiments, attempting to resurrect his dead sister by stitching together parts of his victims. He has been harvesting the women of Windhelm, using Hjerim as his base of operations while the city guards run in circles. The house is not just haunted in the spectral sense, it is stained with the visceral reality of recent violence. One of the more obscure lore tidbits regarding Hjerim is the nature of the amulet found during the investigation. The strange amulet is actually the Necromancer's amulet, a legendary artifact associated with Mannimarco, the King of Worms. Its presence here is significant. This isn't just a random serial killer, this is someone tapping into high-level necromantic traditions that date back to the Second Era. The fact that such a powerful artifact was sitting in a residential home in Windhelm, undetected by the court wizard Wunferth the Unliving, speaks volumes about the magical ignorance, or perhaps willful blindness of the local authorities. Once the Butcher is brought to justice, and hopefully you didn't accidentally frame the innocent court wizard in the process, a common mistake for rookie detectives, you are finally allowed to purchase and decorate the home. For 12,000 gold, you can have the blood scrubbed away. You can install an alchemy lab, an enchanting table, and fill the weapon racks with your spoils of war. It becomes a spacious, warm, and highly functional player home. It has the largest armory of any city home in Skyrim, perfect for the Dragonborn who likes to display every unique sword they find. However, the clean option in the decorating menu is doing a lot of heavy lifting. Fans of the game often joke about the uncleanable spots. Even after you pay the steward to sanitize the place, there are glitches, or perhaps features, where the bloodstains might reappear, or the bone chimes in the secret room remain. You're living in a house where multiple women were dismembered. You're sleeping a few feet away from where a necromancer tried to sew a person together. That kind of psychic residue doesn't just wash out with a bucket of soapy water. The community debate around Hjerim often centres on the hidden room. Most players turn it into an alchemy lab or an enchanting workspace, but there is something deeply unsettling about using a former torture chamber for your crafting. You are mixing healing potions on a table that was likely used for much darker chemistry. Does the intent of the new owner override the history of the space? Or are you simply layering new magic over a foundation of suffering? Some role-playing gamers refuse to buy Hjerim solely on these grounds, arguing that no amount of renovation can purify the energy of the place. Furthermore, the location itself is a double-edged sword. Yes, you are in the prestigious district, but you're also in Windhelm. If you're playing as any race other than a Nord, your neighbours likely despise you. The Dunmer live in squalor in the Grey Quarter, the Argonians are locked out on the docks, and yet here you are, an outsider, living in the finest house in the city. The social tension is palpable. You might have a warm fire, but the icy stares of the Stormcloak guards outside your door never truly thaw. Hjerim represents the darkest aspect of Skyrim's domestic life. It forces the player to confront the fact that the monsters aren't always dragons or draugr. Sometimes they are the polite neighbours who run the local curiosity shop. It turns the concept of home on its head. A home should be a sanctuary, a safe haven. Hjerim was a slaughterhouse. By moving in, you are essentially gentrifying a crime scene. And let's not forget the bugs. Oh, the bugs. Hjerim is notorious in the modding and patching community for being one of the glitchiest homes in the game. Items fall through the floor, mannequins come to life and wander around, a terrifying experience given the house's history, and weapon racks sometimes swallow your gear forever. It's as if the game code itself is rejecting the idea of this place being a normal home. The house fights back against being domesticated. So, you have your spacious armoury, your secret room, and your proximity to the Jarl. But at night, when the wind whistles through the stone cracks, it sounds suspiciously like the screams that were silenced in that back room. You tell yourself it's just the wind. You tell yourself the blood is gone. But deep down, you know that Hjerim will always be the butcher's house. You're just the new caretaker of its grim legacy. Buying Hjerim is a statement. It says, I am the Dragonborn, I eat dragon souls for breakfast, and I'm not afraid of a little haunted architecture. Or perhaps it just says you really needed the storage space and didn't read the disclosure forms. Either way, it stands as a cold, stony reminder that in Tamriel, history is never truly buried. Sometimes, it's just hidden behind a false panel in the wardrobe. But if you think a serial killer's lair is the peak of real estate horror, you haven't visited the Reach. We are heading west now, to the city of stone and silver, Markarth. Here the danger isn't a mortal man with a knife. It is something far older, far more malicious, and infinitely more powerful. In Markarth, the houses don't just have ghosts, they have landlords from the plains of Oblivion. We leave the blood-stained snow of Windhelm and travel west, across the tundra and through the craggy peaks of the Reach, until we arrive at the ancient city of Markarth. Carved directly into the mountainside by the vanished Dwemer, Markarth is a fortress of bronze and stone. It is a vertical city dizzying in its height and complexity, with waterfalls cascading down ancient aqueducts and steam venting from the streets. It is breathtaking, but there is a hardness to it. The stone is cold, the beds are literally made of rock, and the shadows seem to stretch longer here than anywhere else in Skyrim. As you ascend the steep stairs towards the upper levels, you encounter a vigilant of Stendarr named Tyrannus standing outside a seemingly ordinary door. He is agitated, asking for help investigating suspicious activity inside. This is the Abandoned House. It has no fancy name, no manor or hall attached to it. It is simply abandoned. And in a city where space is at a premium, where every inch of stone is utilised, an empty house is an anomaly. It is a void in the city's structure, and voids have a habit of being filled. You agree to help because that's what adventurers do. You unlock the door and step into a domestic setting that looks surprisingly normal, if a bit dusty. But the moment the door clicks shut behind you, the trap is sprung. The air grows heavy. A voice, booming, commanding, and utterly terrifying, fills the room. It is Molag Bal, the Daedric Prince of Domination. This is the core in-game fact that defines this property. The abandoned house is a direct conduit to a Daedric Prince. You are not buying a house, You're walking into a cage match. Molag Bal does not want tenants. He wants entertainment. He locks the door. He commands you to kill Tyrannus, the Vigilant, driven mad by the prince's influence or perhaps just realizing the hopelessness of the situation, attacks you. You are forced to kill an innocent man in the foyer of what could be your future living room. This is the down payment for the abandoned house. It isn't gold, it's blood and moral compromise. Molag Bal then invites you deeper, down into the bowels of the earth where a shrine to him has been desecrated. He tasks you with bringing a priest of Boethia to the shrine to be broken. The quest, the House of Horrors, is aptly named. You're asked to torture a man into submission using a rusty mace. It is one of the darkest, most uncomfortable quests in the game, forcing the player to act as an agent of pure domination. Once the deed is done and the priest is dead, Molag Bal gives you the Mace of Molag Bal and the house. Technically, you have the key. The bodies are mostly gone. The Daedric Prince has gone quiet. The house is yours to use. It's free real estate. But let's look at the amenities. The house is dark. The lighting is oppressive, casting long, creepy shadows. The furniture is ancient and uncomfortable. And most importantly, there is a giant glowing altar to the god of rape and slavery in the basement. You cannot remove it. You cannot sell it. It is a permanent fixture. Every time you go downstairs to store your loot, you are greeting the Prince of Domination. An obscure lore tidbit that adds a layer of dread to this house is the history of the deep folk, the Dwemer, who built Markarth. They were tonal architects, masters of sound and reality manipulation. Some theories suggest that the specific resonance of Markarth stone makes it a natural amplifier for magical energies. Molag Bal's presence here might not be accidental. The house could be built on a weak point in the barriers between Mundus and Coldharbour, amplified by the Dwemer architecture. You aren't just living in a haunted house, you're living inside a metaphysical speaker system broadcasting the will of a Daedric prince. The fan community has long debated the utility of this house. On one hand, it is the earliest safe storage a player can get in Markarth. It has plenty of containers, a bed, if you don't mind sleeping near a murder scene, and it costs absolutely 0 gold. For a low-level character, it is a godsend. On the other hand, it is arguably the most cursed location a player can inhabit. You're squatting in a shrine, there are no upgrades available, you cannot buy a children's bedroom or a kitchen. It is a house frozen in a state of eternal unease. Furthermore, the poltergeist activity never really feels resolved. During the quest, chairs stack themselves, lights flicker, and the house physically shakes. Even after the quest, the atmosphere remains. Players often report feeling uneasy, leaving their characters there. There is a persistent, low-frequency hum, likely the fan on your console or PC, but in the context of the game, it feels like the house is breathing. Living in the abandoned house is a constant reminder of your crimes. Unlike Hjerim, where you solve a murder, here you commit one. You are the villain of this house's story. You killed the Vigilant, you tortured the priest. The house is a monument to your own corruption. Every time you wake up in that stone bed, you are essentially accepting Molag Bal's hospitality. You are his guest. And Molag Bal is not known for being a gracious host. There is also the practical issue of the neighbours. Markarth is a city of secrets. The Silverbloods run the town with an iron fist. The Forsworn are conspiring in the Warrens, and the guards are corrupt. Yet, even they stay away from the abandoned house. Having no neighbours might seem like a perk, but in a city as dangerous as Markarth, it means no one is coming to help if something goes wrong. If the door slams shut and won't open again, no one will hear you scream. For the role players out there, this house poses a significant challenge. How do you justify living here? Are you a worshipper of Molag Bal? Are you a pragmatic sociopath who just likes free storage? Or are you a tortured soul, punishing yourself by dwelling in the darkness? It is a house that demands a backstory. You cannot simply be a normal adventurer and live here. The cognitive dissonance is too high. In the end, the abandoned house is the ultimate fixer-upper that cannot be fixed. You cannot scrub away a Daedric prince. You cannot renovate a portal to Coldharbour. It is a trap that you voluntarily walk into, again and again. It stands as a warning that some things in Tamriel are free for a reason. If you aren't paying with gold, you are paying with your soul. So we have seen a necromancer's manor, a serial killer's estate, and a Daedric shrine. You might be thinking, surely there is a nice normal mansion somewhere in Cyrodiil where I can host a dinner party without ancient evils intervening. Well, let me introduce you to Summitmist Manor in Skingrad. It is beautiful, it is luxurious, and it is the setting for the most disastrous dinner party in history. Pack your formal wear, but maybe leave your appetite at the door. We depart the jagged bronzed peaks of Markarth and return to the lush rolling hills of the West Weald in Cyrodiil. Skingrad is a city of refinement, known for its wines, its cheeses, and its orderly, narrow streets lined with tall stone townhouses. It is the jewel of Colovia, ruled by the pragmatic and powerful Count Janus Hassildor. In this affluent setting, Summitmist Manor stands as a prime example of high society living. It is spacious, well-appointed, and seemingly perfect for entertaining guests. However, Summitmist Manor is infamous not for its architectural beauty, but for hosting the most lethal social gathering in the Third Era. This is the setting for the Dark Brotherhood quest, Whodunit, a quest that is essentially a playable version of an Agatha Christie novel, but with the player cast as the murderer. The premise is simple. You are locked inside the manor with 5 guests. Your orders are to kill them all, but there is a twist. You must do it without any of them witnessing the crimes, effectively turning the house into a pressure cooker of paranoia and suspicion. You are the invisible hand of death, mingling with your victims, drinking wine and making polite conversation while picking them off one by one. The house itself is designed for this macabre theatre. It has multiple floors, separate bedrooms, and winding corridors that create blind spots and isolated corners. It is a locked room nightmare. The front door is sealed, there is no escape. The guests, a boorish Nord, a snobbish high elf, a paranoid Breton, a young Imperial, and a rough-edged Redguard, are trapped with you. This leads to the core in-game fact. Summitmist Manor is a psychological torture chamber. The true horror isn't the killing, it's the manipulation. You can talk to the guests, influencing their fears. You can tell the Nord that the elf is plotting against him. You can convince the Breton that the Redguard is the killer. You watch as they turn on each other, their civility crumbling into terror. The house amplifies this. The creaking floorboards, the shadows in the hallways, the silence that falls after a scream is cut short. The environment is weaponized against the occupants. But what about the property itself? After the party is over and the bodies are cleared, or not depending on how tidy the Dark Brotherhood cleaners are, the manor stands empty. It is a large, valuable property in the heart of Skingrad. Yet, it remains uninhabitable for the player in a functional sense. You cannot buy it. You cannot sleep there comfortably knowing what transpired. An obscure lore tidbit that adds flavour to this location is the identity of the original owner, or the purpose of the gathering. The guests believe they are there for a treasure hunt, searching for a chest of gold hidden in the manor. This greed is what lured them to their deaths. It is a classic morality play. Greed leads to a house where the only prize is a dagger in the back. The chest, of course, is empty. The house itself is the trap. The promise of wealth in Summitmist Manor is a lie, much like the promise of safety. The fan community loves this quest, often citing it as the peak of the Oblivion Dark Brotherhood questline, but few stop to consider the lingering energy of the place. Imagine living there afterwards. You're sitting in the dining room, eating a sweet roll, and you look at the chair where the high elf sat sipping her wine, completely unaware that she would be dead within the hour. You walk up the stairs and remember the thud of the Nord's body hitting the floor. The house is a mausoleum of betrayed trust. Even if you could buy it, the acoustics are terrible for peace of mind. The walls are thin enough to hear a scream, but thick enough to muffle a plea for help. The layout, which served the assassin so well, would be a nightmare for a homeowner. Too many corners, too many places for something to hide. It is a house designed for separation, for isolating people. A family living here would constantly feel disconnected, drifting through the rooms like the ghosts of the previous guests. There is also the matter of the neighbours. Skingrad is a tight-knit community. Everyone knows everyone. A house where 5 people were brutally murdered in one night. That stigma doesn't wash off. You wouldn't just be the new owner, you would be the person living in the murder house. The local guards would watch you. The shopkeepers would whisper. You would be a pariah in a city that prides itself on social standing. Summitmist Manor represents the terror of the mundane. It isn't a dungeon or a cave. It is a house just like any other on the street. It has comfortable beds, a well-stocked larder, and a warm fire. but it was transformed into a slaughterhouse by the presence of a single individual, you. It reflects the idea that safety is an illusion. The lock on the door doesn't keep the monster out if the monster has a key. For the completionist, the inability to own this manor is a frustration. It sits there, a beautiful asset, unused. But perhaps that is for the best. Some houses are tainted beyond redemption. Some floors have soaked up too much fear to ever be comfortable again. Summitmist Manor is a monument to the art of murder, a stage where a gruesome play was enacted, and when the curtain fell, only silence remained. So, we leave the psychological horror of Skingrad behind. We have dealt with ghosts, serial killers, Daedric Princes and assassins. But sometimes the worst roommate isn't a demon or a murderer. Sometimes it is simply a corpse that refuses to decompose or disappear. We are crossing the border into Morrowind, to the dusty, insect-ridden town of Balmora. Here, in the exotic land of the Dunmer, we find a house that comes with a very specific, very permanent storage solution. We cross the Vallis Mountains and descend into the ash-choked lands of Morrowind. The air here tastes of sulphur and spice. We find ourselves in Balmora, the district seat of House Hlaalo. It is a city of adobe-style buildings, perched along the banks of the Odai River, constantly buzzing with the hum of silt striders overhead. It is a place of intrigue, where the Morag Tong operates in the shadows and the Kamona Tong exerts its brutal influence. In this city of spies and merchants, we find Hlaalo Manor, a property that offers a unique, if morbid, feature for the pragmatic homeowner. Hlaalo Manor is a spacious, multi-level home located on the western side of the river, in the affluent Manor district. It boasts a balcony with a fine view of the city, ample shelving, and the distinct organic architecture of the Dunmer. But upon entering, you are greeted not by a warm hearth, but by a cold body. Lying on the floor is the corpse of Roland Hlaalo, a noble of House Hlaalo. This brings us to the core in-game fact. Roland Hlaalo's body is a permanent fixture. He does not despawn. In Morrowind, unlike later games, most corpses eventually disappear to save memory. But Raylan is a quest object, a piece of evidence in a murder mystery involving the Kamona Tong and the Imperial Legion. Because of his essential status in the game's code, his body remains on the floor forever. Now, a normal person would be horrified. They would call the guards, demand the body be removed, or simply flee the premises. But the seasoned Morrowind player sees something else. They see storage. You see, Raylan Hlaalo has an infinite weight limit. You can stuff 500 suits of glass armour, a library's worth of books, and enough alchemy ingredients to poison a god into his pockets, and he will hold it all without complaint. He is, functionally, the best chest in the game. This creates a darkly hilarious dynamic. You move into this manor, you decorate the shelves with your loot, you set up your alchemy apparatus on the table, and right there, in the middle of the living room, is a dead noble serving as your primary luggage. Where did I put the Sword of White Woe? Ah, right, it's in Raylan. It is a testament to the glorious absurdity of Elder Scrolls logic. But let's step back into the lore and the reality of this situation. Living in Hlaalo Manor means living in an active crime scene that never closes. The servant, Urine Nirith, is the only witness, and she is terrified. The quest to solve his murder reveals the deep corruption in Balmora. Roland was killed by a Kamona Tong thug, likely on the orders of the local kingpin, purely to frame the Imperial Legion and stir up anti-Outlander sentiment. By living here, you're squatting in the centre of a political assassination plot. The roommate who won't leave aspect is more than just a gameplay mechanic. It's a haunting reminder of the brutality of House Hlaalo politics. Raylan was a noble, a man of status. Now, he is a container. It strips away the dignity of death. It turns a tragedy into a utility. In a way, it is the ultimate insult to the victim. You aren't just ignoring his death, you are capitalising on it. Lore-wise, the presence of the body would make the house unlivable. The smell alone, in the humid, ash-filled air of Vardenfell, would be unbearable. The flies, the rot, the sheer sanitary nightmare of having a decomposing elf in your parlour is something the game engine politely ignores, but our imagination cannot, not to mention the spiritual implications. The Dunmer have complex rituals regarding their ancestors and the dead. Leaving a body unburied, uncremated and used as a backpack is a grave offence against the ancestor spirits. You are practically inviting a haunting or a curse from the tribunal temple. The fan community has embraced this oddity with open arms. Ralin Hlaalo is often referred to affectionately as the Infinite Corpse. He's a staple of Morrowind playthroughs, a silent partner in the Nerevarin's rise to power. Players will dress him up, putting funny hats or expensive robes on the corpse, treating him like a macabre mannequin. It highlights the disconnect between the player's objectives, efficiency, loot storage, and the narrative reality, a brutal murder. And let's not forget the layout of the manor itself. It is vertically designed, with narrow staircases and tight corners. It feels cramped compared to the sprawling estates of Cyrodiil. The lighting is dim, relying on candles and the ambient glow of the ash storms outside. It feels secretive, a place where deals are made in whispers. The balcony is the only reprieve, offering a breath of fresh, albeit dusty air. Living in Hlaalo Manor also puts you in the crosshairs of the Commoner Tong. They killed the previous owner. They know where the house is. If they decide to finish the job or clear up loose ends, you are the first one they will find. You are sleeping in a house marked for death. The Council Club, the gathering place of these xenophobic thugs, is just across the river. You can probably see them from your balcony watching you, waiting. Hlaalo Manor is a prime example of cursed real estate, not because of ghosts or demons, but because of the sheer callousness it encourages in the resident. It normalizes living with death. It turns the player into a squatter with no respect for the sanctity of the home or the dead. It is a house that demands you leave your morality at the door, or at least shove it into Raylan's inventory along with your spare Kwama eggs. As the sun sets over the Ordai River, casting long purple shadows across Balmora, you sit in your stolen chair, counting your gold, while your silent roommate lies on the floor, eternally holding your burdens. It is a lonely, quiet, and deeply disturbing existence. But if you think the Ash of Vardenfell is bad, wait until we travel north to the island of Solstheim. There, in the shadow of the Red Mountain, lies a manor that was given as a reward for thwarting an assassination, only to become the stage for constant paranoia. Pack your warmest furs and your sharpest daggers. We are heading to Raven Rock. We leave the mainland of Morrowind, boarding the Northern Maiden for a rough, nausea-inducing voyage across the Sea of Ghosts to the island of Solstheim. The air here is thick with ash, blowing south from the Red Mountain, coating everything in a layer of grey despair. We arrive in Raven Rock, a colony of House Redoran that feels less like a town and more like a survival bunker. The architecture is distinct, curved, organic shapes made of bone mould and stone, designed to deflect the constant ash storms. It is a grim, hardy place for grim, hardy people, and right in the middle of it sits Severin Manor. Unlike the abandoned or haunted houses we've visited so far, Severin Manor is bustling with life when you first encounter it. It is occupied by the Severin family, Vendel, Tilisu, and their daughter, Miri. They seem like upstanding citizens, wealthy enough to own one of the largest properties in town. But in Solstheim, nothing is as it seems. The manor is not a happy family home. It is a command centre for a sleeper cell of House Hlaalo assassins. The acquisition of this property is perhaps the most brutal eviction process in the game. During the quest, Served Cold, you discover that the Severins are plotting to assassinate Councillor Leril Morvain, the ruler of Raven Rock. The family is a sham, a cover for their conspiracy. You break into their home, find the incriminating evidence in their safe, and eventually track them down to the Ashvallow Citadel to execute them. Here is the core in-game fact. The house is a direct reward for state-sanctioned execution. Upon your return, Councillor Morvain doesn't just give you gold, he hands you the deed to the Severin estate. The Severin family roster has been dealt with, he says. The property is now yours. It is a transaction cold enough to freeze a flame Atronach. You are moving into the house of the people you just killed, likely while their dinner is still sitting on the table. In the real world, this would be a probate nightmare involving years of litigation. In Raven Rock, it's just efficient governance. Stepping inside your new home, you are immediately struck by the Redoran aesthetic. It is an acquired taste. There are no windows in Severin Manor. Being underground, built into the town shell, it relies entirely on magical lighting and candles. The walls are made of reddish-brown organic material that looks suspiciously like the inside of a giant crab. The layout is spacious, certainly. It includes a forge, a smelter, an alchemy lab, and an enchanting table. But the atmosphere is oppressive. It feels like living inside a lung that has inhaled too much smoke. The amenities include a master bedroom that belonged to the ringleaders of the assassination plot. When you sleep in that bed, you're sleeping where Talisu Severin plotted the downfall of the local government. The air is stale, recycled, and smells faintly of ash yams and treachery. Unlike the breezy homes of Skyrim, there is no escape from the environment here. The ashes outside, the ashes inside, the ashes in your soul. An obscure lore tidbit concerns the identity of the Severin family members themselves. Digging into their journals reveals they weren't just political dissidents, they were fanatics holding onto a grudge from the Red Year, nearly 200 years prior. House Hlaalo was stripped of its great house status and removed from the Grand Council early in the Fourth Era. The Severins represent the rotting corpse of a dead political dynasty, refusing to let go. By living there, you're inhabiting a monument to a lost cause, a museum of bitterness. Fans of Dragonborn often praise the house for its utility. Having a forge and smelter inside is a crafter's dream, but they frequently debate the creep factor of the mannequins. Severin Manor is notorious for its buggy mannequins. In the flickering light of the Redoran lamps, these wooden figures have a habit of stepping off their pedestals or changing poses when you aren't looking. Given the house's history of deception and hidden identities, it adds a layer of supernatural paranoia. Is that mannequin moving because of a glitch, or is the ghost of a Hlaalo assassin trying to stab you? Furthermore, consider the social implications. You are the outlander, even if you are a Dunmer, you aren't from here, living in the traitor's house. The Redoran guards, who value honour and duty above all, know exactly how you got that house. They salute you, yes, but there is a distance. You are a reminder of the internal rot that nearly destroyed their colony. You are the executioner living in the victim's clothes. And let's talk about the neighbourhood. Raven Rock is depressing, the economy is barely holding on, the mines are dangerous, and the only tavern serves sujamma that tastes like lighter fluid. If you bring a spouse or children here, which is possible with mods or specific game versions, they are miserable. Your children will complain about the ash. Your spouse will complain about the lack of sunlight. You have dragged your family to a purgatory of dust just to own a house with a smelter in the living room. Then there is the threat of the ash spawn. These creatures born from the volcanic ash and heartstones frequently attack the town. Living in Severin Manor means you're on the front lines. You step out your front door to pick up the morning courier's delivery and get a face full of burning ash magic from a zombie that rose out of the ground. The property value in Raven Rock is low for a reason. Severin Manor is the ultimate bachelor pad for the antisocial hero. It is dark, functional, and isolated. It asks nothing of you but to endure the gloom. But it lacks warmth. It lacks the feeling of safety. It is a bunker designed for survival, not a home designed for living. Every time you strike the anvil in your bedroom forge, the sound rings out against the chitinous walls, echoing the violence that transferred the deed to your name. It serves as a stark reminder that in the world of the Elder Scrolls, political power and real estate are often decided by the blade. You didn't buy this house with coin, you bought it with the silence of the previous tenants, and in the quiet, ash-muffled dark of Raven Rock, that silence is deafening. But perhaps you are tired of the dark. Perhaps you crave the fresh air of the pine forests, the sound of a bubbling lake, and the freedom to build your own home from the ground up. We are heading back to Skyrim, to the verdant hold of Falkreath. Here, you can build Lakeview Manor, the house of your dreams. Just try to ignore the neighbour who lives a few yards away. He's very quiet, very ancient, and very much involved in the dark arts. We leave the choking ash of Solstheim and breathe in the crisp, pine-scented air of Skyrim's southern frontier. Falkreath Hold is a region of dense forests, misty mornings, and a quiet, brooding beauty. It is famous for its massive graveyard, which houses more dead than the living population of the town, and for the abundant wildlife that roams the woods. Here, the Jarl offers you a rare opportunity, the chance to purchase a plot of land and build your own home, brick by brick, log by log. This is the promise of Lakeview Manor. On paper, it is the perfect retirement plan for the Dragonborn. The plot is situated on a bluff overlooking the shimmering waters of Lake Ilinalta. To the north, the Bleakfalls Barrow looms majestically against the sky. To the south, the Gerald Mountains form a natural barrier. You spend weeks gathering lumber, quarrying stone, and forging iron fittings. You construct a main hall, a greenhouse, maybe even a trophy room. It feels personal, it feels safe. It is yours in a way no pre-built city house can be. But then you inspect your property line. Just a stone's throw from your front door, down a small slope towards the lake, lies a peculiar stone structure. It is a circle of standing stones, an altar, and a confused skeleton. This is a conjurer's altar. And here is the core in-game fact that ruins the real estate value. This altar is an active spawn point for novice necromancers. You cannot bulldoze it. You cannot get the Jarl to rezone it. It is a permanent feature of your front yard. Every time you fast travel home, expecting a warm greeting from your spouse or children, you are instead greeted by a bolt of frost magic or a raised zombie. "Honey, I'm Ho Duck" becomes the standard greeting. You're essentially living next door to a magical crack den where aspiring dark wizards come to practice their unholy crafts. This proximity to danger turns domestic life into a tower defense game. Your cow, dead, killed by a stray ice spike. Your chickens, necromanced. Your carriage driver, cowering in the bushes. It is impossible to relax. You're trying to harvest Jazbay grapes in your garden, while a skeleton is being reanimated 20 feet away. It ruins the ambience of a quiet country life. But the necromancer is just the tip of the iceberg. Lakeview Manor is located in one of the most hostile wildlife corridors in the game. It is a highway for giants, wolves, and bandits. Fans often joke that Lakeview Manor has a hidden attract enemy enchantment. You step out onto your balcony to admire the sunrise, only to see a giant deciding to use your cow pen as a golf course, or a pack of wolves spawn camping your front door. An obscure lore tidbit that adds a layer of existential dread to this location involves Lake Ilinalta itself. The lake is rumoured to be the resting place of a sunken imperial fort, Ilinalta's Deep. This fort didn't just sink, it was dragged under by a catastrophic failure of a magical experiment, possibly involving the chaotic energies of the Azura's star artifact. The water you're looking at, the water you might be fishing in, is tainted by centuries of dark magic and drowning. The necromancer on your lawn isn't random. He's drawn to the magical residue of the area. You built your dream home on a ley line of disaster. Then there is Pine Watch, a seemingly innocent cottage just down the road. It turns out to be a front for a massive bandit operation. So, to your left, you have necromancers. To your right, you have organised crime. And behind you in the woods are Spriggans who resent your landscaping efforts. You're the only law-abiding citizen in a neighbourhood of felons and monsters. The community debate regarding Lakeview Manor is polarised. Some love the beauty and the central location. Others find the constant attacks exhausting. It raises the question, why did the Jarl sell you this specific plot? Was it a favour, or was he trying to get a powerful warrior to clear out the local pests for free? You paid 5,000 gold for the privilege of acting as unpaid security for the wildest part of the hold. And let's consider the family aspect. If you adopt children and move them here, they will frequently comment on the scary things in the woods. They aren't imagining it. They are seeing literal monsters. You are raising your children in a war zone. Your spouse, depending on their voice type, might constantly complain about the danger. "I saw a wolf today," they'll say, with the 1,000-yard stare of someone who barely survived the trip to the mailbox. Furthermore, the isolation breeds a different kind of horror. In the city, the guards are a shout away. Here, you are alone. If a dragon attacks, and they frequently do, roasting your roof and setting your stables on fire, it is just you and your housecarl against a mythical beast. There is no backup. The solitude that seems so romantic in the brochure becomes a heavy silence at night, broken only by the chanting of the necromancer down the hill. Lakeview Manor is a lesson in the importance of location, location, location. You can build the finest manor in Skyrim, fill it with gold and treasures, and stuff it with a loyal steward and bard. But you cannot build a wall high enough to keep out the fundamental wildness of the world. You have carved a small island of order in a sea of chaos, and the chaos is constantly lapping at your doorstep. It is the dream home that requires eternal vigilance. You can never truly rest. You can never truly let your guard down. You are the lord of the manor, yes, but you are also the eternal watchman, forever guarding your patch of earth from the darkness that wants to reclaim it. But if you think a necromancer in the garden is bad, imagine if the darkness was the entire point of the property. Imagine a home designed not for living, but for hiding. We are heading back to Cyrodiil, to the southern swamps of Blackwood. There, submerged beneath the murky waters lies a lair that makes even the dampest dungeon look cosy. We're diving into Deepscorn Hollow. We travel south from the pine forests of Skyrim, crossing the border back into Cyrodiil. We bypass the cities and the roads, heading into the humid, mosquito-infested swamps of Blackwood. This is a region where the land and water fight for dominance, a patchwork of bog, moss, and decaying roots. It is here, submerged beneath the dark waters of Topal Bay, that we find Deepscorn Hollow. Deepscorn Hollow is unique in the real estate market of Tamriel because it isn't really a house in the traditional sense. It is a lair. Added as part of the Vile Lair official plugin for Oblivion, it was designed specifically for the player who has embraced the darkness, the vampire, the assassin, the villain. To find it, you must navigate to a small, unassuming island off the coast of Leowyn. There, half buried in the mud and reeds, is a hollowed-out log that serves as the entrance. You slip into the water, swim through a submerged tunnel, and emerge into a massive natural cavern. The air is cold and damp, smelling of stale water and ancient stone. The lighting is dim, provided by the bioluminescent glow of mushrooms and the flickering of torches. This is the hideout of the Crimson Scars, a splinter faction of the Dark Brotherhood that was wiped out centuries ago. Now it belongs to you. The core in-game fact that defines Deepscorn Hollow is its specialised amenities for the sanguinarily challenged. The centrepiece of the lair is the Font of Renewal, a pool of water presided over by a statue of Sithis. For a vampire player, this is a mechanic of immense value. It allows you to cure vampirism with the proper offering, or simply wallow in the dark energy. But for anyone else, it is a pool of blood-tainted water in a cave. Then there is the cattle cell. Yes, you can purchase an upgrade that installs a sleeping prisoner in a cell whose sole purpose is to be fed upon. He never wakes up. He never leaves. He's a living juice box. Even for a role-playing game that allows you to summon demons, keeping a comatose human as a snack in your basement is a level of domestic depravity that is hard to overlook. You're not just a homeowner, you are a captor. But the true horror of Deepscorn Hollow lies in the Garden of Venom Growth. Unlike the cheerful greenhouse of Lakeview Manor, this garden grows only poisonous plants. Chokeberry, nightshade, harrider, it is a botanist's nightmare. And lurking within the cavern is the minion, a dark, silent Dunmer who serves you. He doesn't speak. He just stands there, sharpening his dagger, waiting for orders to murder someone in your name to bring back infamy gold. An obscure lore tidbit reveals the tragic history of the Crimson Scars. They were founded by Greywyn, a vampire who believed that Sithis desired a brotherhood of only vampires. He plotted to infect the entire Dark Brotherhood. However, the plan failed when a traitor revealed the plot to the Black Hand. The purification that followed was brutal. Deepscorn Hollow was the site of a massacre. When you move in, you're literally sweeping up the dust of assassinated assassins. The Journal of Greywyn, found in the lair, details his descent into madness as he prayed to Sithis for salvation that never came. Living in Deepscorn Hollow is a wet, miserable experience. Imagine the humidity. Everything you own would be damp within hours. Your books would rot. Your armour would rust. The constant dripping of water from the stalactites would be a form of Chinese water torture. And the cold, it is a bone-deep chill that no fire can truly banish because you are effectively underground and underwater. The fan community has a love-hate relationship with this home. It is undeniably cool for an evil playthrough. It has a secret exit, a shrine to Sithis that grants stat boosts, and plenty of storage. But it is incredibly isolating. You're far from civilization. Leowyn is the nearest city, but to get there, you have to swim out of your front door. No merchant is going to deliver groceries here. No courier is going to find you. You are cutting yourself off from the world. And let's talk about the bed. It is a stone slab covered in what looks like a thin layer of straw and cloth. It is shaped like a coffin. It is not designed for rest. It is designed for a corpse. Sleeping there feels less like recharging and more like rehearsing for your own funeral. Deepscorn Hollow forces the player to confront the reality of the evil lair trope. In movies, villains have swanky, high-tech bases. In Tamriel, they have damp caves filled with poisonous plants and silent servants. It is grim. It is lonely. It strips away the glamour of being a master assassin or a vampire lord and leaves you with the cold, hard truth. You are hiding in a hole in the ground because the light of day, and the laws of man are your enemies. Moreover, the psychological toll of living in a shrine to Sithis cannot be overstated. You are living in a temple dedicated to the void, to the concept of nothingness. The energy of the place is anti-life. It drains the spirit. There is no joy in Deepscorn Hollow, only the quiet satisfaction of survival and the plotting of future murders. So, you have your underwater cave, you have your prisoner, you have your poisonous garden, you're the king of the swamp. But as you sit on your throne of stone, listening to the drip, drip, drip of the water, you have to wonder, is this power, or is it just a very wet, very lonely prison? But perhaps you prefer the dry land. Perhaps you want to be a simple farmer, tilling the soil and raising crops. We return to Skyrim, to the rolling plains of Whiterun Hold, but be warned, the soil at Goldenhills Plantation is rich not because of fertilizer, but because of what, or who, is buried beneath it. We emerge from the dank, submerged caverns of Blackwood and travel north once more, crossing back into the rugged beauty of Skyrim. We find ourselves in the Whiterun Hold, the agricultural heartland of the province. The plains stretch out like a golden ocean of grass, framed by the distant peaks of the throat of the world. Here, just east of Rorikstead, lies a property that seems like the answer to a weary adventurer's prayers, Goldenhills Plantation. Added in the Creation Club farming content, Goldenhills is a sprawling estate. It has fertile soil, a windmill, a farmhouse, and animal pens. It promises a life of honest labour, of swords to ploughshares. You imagine yourself retiring here, watching the wheat sway in the wind, collecting profits from your steward. But as you approach the farmhouse, you notice something is wrong. The fields are overgrown, the windows are dark, and lying near the front door is a body. This is the welcome mat of Goldenhills, a dead bandit seemingly killed by something else. You step inside and the ghost story begins. You're not buying a farm, you're walking into the aftermath of a family tragedy that ended in murder-suicide. The quest, the unquiet dead, triggers immediately. The doors lock. The ghosts of the previous owners, Erval and Jonquil, attack you. Here is the core in-game fact. You cannot farm a single turnip until you solve the murder of the family that lived here. You have to find the journal of the son, Rin, who went missing. You discover that the parents turned on each other, suspecting infidelity or incompetence, leading to a frantic, violent end. The ghosts aren't just random spirits, they are the psychic residue of a domestic breakdown. The father killed the mother killed the father, and the son? He died alone in the wilderness, clutching his toy sword, waiting for parents who would never come. It is one of the bleakest narratives in Skyrim. You find the boy's skeletal remains near a wolf den. You bring his toy sword back to the farmhouse and place it on his dresser. Only then do the spirits of the parents appear, not to attack, but to reconcile in death, realizing their petty squabbles distracted them from saving their child. They fade away, leaving you the keys to the farm. Congratulations, the game seems to say. The ghosts are gone. Happy farming. But are they really gone? You're now living in the house where a husband murdered his wife. You're sleeping in their bed. You're eating at the table where they had their final screaming arguments. The emotional footprint of that tragedy is stamped into the wood of the house. An obscure lore tidbit that fans often miss is the implication of why the soil is so fertile. The farm is located dangerously close to a dragon burial mound and several giant camps. The land is soaked in ancient chaotic magic. But more disturbingly, the previous family's success was hinted to be partly due to Jonquil's knowledge of alchemy, and perhaps darker arts. She was an apothecary who created poisons. The Goldenhills might be flourishing because they are fed by something unnatural. Once the farm is yours, it becomes a mechanical powerhouse. You can plant blisterwort, scaly foliota, and other high-value crops. You can hire a steward and farmhands. The passive income is staggering. Goldenhills Plantation is without a doubt the most profitable player home in Skyrim. It prints money. You can become the tycoon of the tundra. But let's look at the daily reality. You hire farmhands to work the fields. Where do they sleep? In the bunkhouse, sure. But do you tell them about the previous owners? Do they know they are tilling soil that was neglected because the last farmers were too busy killing each other? The happy farm vibe is a veneer over a very grim history. The location is also a tactical nightmare. You're in the middle of the plains, completely exposed. Dragons love to strafe the flat land. Giants herd their mammoths right through your cabbage patch, and let's not forget the wolves. Rin, the little boy, was killed by wolves just outside the property line. Every time you hear a howl at night, it's a reminder of that child's terrifying final moments. The fan community debates the morality of the child labour aspect. You can adopt children and move them here. They will do chores. But moving your new family into a house that was destroyed by the dysfunction of the previous family feels like tempting fate. You are replacing a dead child with a new one in the exact same bedroom. It's a bit macabre, even for the Dragonborn. Furthermore, there is a distinct lack of privacy. The road runs right past your front porch. Guards patrol nearby. You are living in a fishbowl. Unlike the secluded Lakeview Manor or the hidden Deepscorn Hollow, Goldenhills is public. Everyone sees your business, and everyone in Rorikstead likely knows the history of the murder farm. The neighbours, what few there are, probably watch you with suspicion, waiting to see if you'll succumb to the same madness that took Erval and Jonquil. Goldenhills Plantation represents the American dream of Tamriel, land ownership and self-sufficiency, curdled by tragedy. It teaches you that wealth, and this farm produces a lot of it, often comes from the suffering of others. You're profiting from a vacuum left by death. The wheat grows tall, the cows are fat, and the gold piles up. But in the quiet moments, when the wind whistles through the cracks in the barn, you can almost hear the weeping of a lost boy and the angry shouts of his doomed parents. It is a beautiful, profitable, and deeply haunted piece of real estate. A bumper crop of sorrow awaits anyone who tills these fields. But if you think farming ghosts is hard work, try sleeping on a bed made of solid stone while suspended hundreds of feet in the air. We are heading back to the Reach, to the vertiginous heights of Markarth, to look at a property that violates every health and safety code in the Empire. Welcome to Vlindrel Hall. We leave the flat, golden expanses of Whiterun's plains, where the only danger is a ghost in the vegetable patch, and return to the vertical nightmare of the Reach. We are back in Markarth. We visited this city of stone and sorrow earlier to look at a free house haunted by a Daedric Prince. Now we're going to examine the luxury option. We're ascending the dizzying staircases, past the Temple of Dibella, past the guard towers, to the highest residential tier of the city. Here, carved into the very face of the mountain, lies Vlindrel Hall. In the real estate brochures of Skyrim, if such things existed, Vlindrel Hall would be marketed as a lofty penthouse with breathtaking views. And to be fair, the view is spectacular. You can see the entire city spread out below you, the waterfalls, the smelters, the ant-like figures of the guards patrolling the streets. But as any seasoned adventurer knows, a good view usually implies a lethal drop. Vlindrel Hall is not just a home, it is a test of your balance, your knees, and your tolerance for sleeping on surfaces harder than a dragon's scale. To acquire this property, you must ingratiate yourself with Jarl Igmund. This usually involves retrieving a family heirloom, a shield, from a dungeon infested with forsworn or hagravens. Once you have proven you can survive the wilds of the Reach, and perhaps after you have done some dirty work for the Jarl by eliminating a few Reachman leaders, you are permitted to buy the hall for 8,000 gold. You pay the steward, receive the heavy bronze key, and make the climb. And it is a climb. Living in Vlindrel Hall means that every trip to the market is a cardio workout. By the time you reach your front door, you are out of breath. You step inside, expecting the opulence of a Jarl's favour. What you get is industrial chic. The interior of Vlindrel Hall is pure Dwemer architecture. There is no wood here, no plaster, no soft rugs. Everything is bronze, stone and hewn rock. The ceilings are high and vaulted, echoing your footsteps with a lonely hollow sound. The lighting is provided by glowing Dwemer struts and the occasional fire pit that seems to struggle against the overwhelming cold of the stone. It feels less like a home and more like a laboratory or a machine shop that someone cleared out and put a chair in. This brings us to the core in-game fact that baffles every player who purchases this home. The beds are made of stone. This is not a metaphor. The mattress is a slab of rock. There is a thin layer of animal hide thrown over it, but underneath, it is solid granite. The Dwemer, in their infinite wisdom and tonal mastery, apparently did not believe in lumber support. Or perhaps they had naturally softer carapaces than the average Nord. Sleeping in Vlindrel Hall is an orthopedic nightmare. You lie down, and the cold of the mountain seeps directly into your spine. You wake up stiff, bruised, and probably colder than when you went to sleep. It defies all logic of comfort. Even the prisoners in the Cidna mine sleep on dirt, which is arguably softer than your luxury bed. for a dragonborn who spends their days getting hit by giants and roasted by dragons, coming home to a stone slab is not rest, it is punishment, but the discomfort is just the beginning. Let's talk about safety. Vlindrel Hall features a lovely entryway porch. It has no railing. One wrong step, one slip on the icy stone, or one drunken stumble after too much mead, and you are plummeting hundreds of feet to the market district below. You wouldn't just break a leg, you would explode on impact. It is a lawsuit waiting to happen, but since the Jarl owns the courts, good luck with that. An obscure lore tidbit that adds to the unease of Vlindrel Hall is the nature of the steam and the noise in Markarth. The city is built on top of the ruins of Nchuan-Zel, a massive Dwemer city. The pipes and vents in Vlindrel Hall are connected to this ancient subterranean network. Lore suggests that the steam heating the city is generated by massive, automated boilers deep underground that have been running without maintenance for thousands of years. You are living on top of a ticking time bomb of pressure. Sometimes you can hear the deep rhythmic thumping of the machinery in the walls. The house is vibrating. It is alive with the mechanical heartbeat of a vanished race. This connects to a popular fan theory regarding the madness of Markarth. Players and lore enthusiasts have long debated why Markarth is such a hotbed of suffering, corruption and insanity. Some blame the Daedric influence of Molag Bal and Namira, but others point to the tonal architecture of the Dwemer. The Dwemer use sound and resonance to manipulate reality. The theory posits that the city is constantly emitting a low-frequency hum, a ghost tone, that slowly destabilizes the minds of those who live there. Living in Vlindrel Hall, surrounded by these resonating stones, you're sitting in the amplifier. The stone bed isn't just uncomfortable, it's a conductor for psychic static. Then there is the layout. Vlindrel Hall is cavernous but segmented. The enchanting and alchemy stations are tucked away in a back room that feels like a surgery theatre. The display cases are finicky. But the real issue is the isolation within the house. The sound dampening of the stone is strange. You can be in the bedroom and not hear someone breaking down the front door. It creates a sense of vulnerability despite the thick walls. And let's not forget your neighbours. To your right you have the Temple of Dibella, where the priestesses are secluded. To your left, the guard tower. And wandering the palace just above you is Ondalamar, the Thalmor Justiciar. You're living in the most politically charged square footage in Skyrim. If the Thalmor decide they don't like you, they don't have to travel far. They are practically your roommates. You can probably hear Ondalamar shouting about Talos worship from your balcony while you're trying to enjoy your morning coffee. The amenities of Markarth also leave much to be desired. The local general store is run by a family heavily implied to be cannibals. The Namira questline confirms this for many of the citizens. The local jeweller is a nervous wreck. The Jarl is oblivious. Living in Vlindrel Hall means your local community consists of cannibals, corrupt guards, and Thalmor agents. It is a high society ghetto. For the completionist, Vlindrel Hall offers the most display space for books in the base game, outside of the Hearthfire homes. It has massive bookshelves. This appeals to the scholar build. But imagine reading those books. You're sitting on a stone bench under the flickering light of a gas lamp shivering in the draught, while the walls hum with ancient machinery. It is the atmosphere of a frantic scientist, not a relaxed reader. There is also the mannequin issue. While all Skyrim homes have glitches, Vlindrel Hall's mannequins are notorious for wandering. In the context of a Dwemer ruin, this is infinitely more terrifying. When you walk into your armory and the mannequin wearing your Daedric armor has turned its head to look at you, or moved 3 feet to the left, it's hard to dismiss it as a bug. In this city of automatons, you start to wonder if the armor stands are learning. Are they the new animunculi? Let's consider the children. If you move your family here, your children will complain. I don't like Markarth. It's scary, and the beds are hard. They are the voice of reason. You're raising them on a cliff edge, in a city where people get eaten, sleeping on rocks. It is Child Protective Services bait. They can't play outside because outside is a lethal drop, or a street filled with forsworn conspirators. Vlindrel Hall is the embodiment of form over function. It looks impressive. It implies power and stability. It says, I have conquered the mountain. But in reality, it is a cold, hard, dangerous place to live. It strips away the warmth of the hearth and replaces it with the cold efficiency of the machine. The player who chooses Vlindrel Hall is usually one who values aesthetics over comfort, or perhaps a role player dedicated to the Dwemer researcher archetype. But even they must tire of the grey. Grey walls, grey floors, grey beds. The lack of colour wears on the soul. It is a monochrome existence. As night falls over the reach and the mists roll in through the canyons, Vlindrel Hall becomes a tomb in the sky. You lie on your granite slab, listening to the wind howl against the bronze doors, and you realise that the Dwemer didn't vanish. They just realised that living in these houses was unbearable and decided to leave reality altogether. It was the only way to get a good night's sleep. So, we have survived the stone beds of Markarth. But if you think living in a Dwemer tower is isolating, try living in a mushroom tower in the middle of a volcanic wasteland where the neighbours are giant bugs and the landlord is a lunatic wizard. We are returning to Morrowind, to the ashlands of the Mola Gamur region. Prepare your levitation spells, because our next house has no stairs. We leave the freezing heights of Skyrim's mountains and return to the alien, hostile warmth of Vardenfell. But we are not going to the civilized streets of Balmora or the holy city of Vivec. We are heading into the Mola Gamur region, a landscape that looks less like a habitable province and more like the surface of a dying planet. The ground here is jagged obsidian and grey ash. Rivers of lava flow sluggishly through the canyons, illuminating the choking dust with a hellish red glow. And here, rising from the desolation like a giant cancerous growth, is Tel Uvirith. If you have chosen the path of House Telvanni, the house of wizard lords, isolationists and ethical nightmares, this is your reward. You don't buy Tel Uvirith, you grow it. You commission a construction that involves mycothurgy, the magic of fungus, planting a spore that erupts into a twisting organic tower. It is a home that is technically alive. It pulses, it breathes. It is the ultimate status symbol for the sorcerer who wants the world to know they just don't care about zoning laws or neighbours. The first thing you notice when you approach your new stronghold is the silence. There are no neighbours to borrow sugar from. The nearest settlement is a camp of Ashlander nomads who likely hate you, or a vampire lair. You are miles from civilization, surrounded by Nyx hounds, shorks, and the incessant screeching of cliff racers. But for a Telvanni, this isolation is a feature, not a bug. You moved here specifically so people would leave you alone. Upon entering the main tower, you encounter the core in-game fact that acts as the ultimate filter for guests. There are no stairs. House Telvanni views walking as a pedestrian activity for the magically illiterate. To access the upper levels, the bedroom or the laboratory, you must cast Levitate. If you cannot fly, you cannot go to bed. It is architectural gatekeeping at its finest. This design ensures that no thieves, no door-to-door salesmen, and certainly no non-magical in-laws can ever bother you in your study. You float up the central shaft, drifting past the glowing fungal pods, looking down at the gravity-bound plebeians below with the sneering superiority that comes with the territory. Inside, the decor is distinct. The walls are not stone or wood, they are the interior of a mushroom. They are spongy, curved and brown. There are no straight lines in Tel Uvirith. Furniture looks like it was grown out of the floor rather than placed there. The lighting is bioluminescent, a sickly green or yellow glow that makes everyone look slightly nauseous. It smells of earth, spores and ozone. It is a house that feels like it might digest you if you sleep too soundly. An obscure lore tidbit that enhances the creepiness of this tower is the method of its growth. Telvanni towers are often anchored using heartstones or powerful soul gems to stimulate the initial growth of the fungal pod. You're essentially living inside an organism that was force-fed magic to grow to a monstrous size. The Tower of Tel Uvirith, specifically, is grown in a region so hostile that its very existence is a defiant act of magical terraforming. It is drawing nutrients from ash and lava, converting the waste of the Red Mountain into a living fortress. You're living in a biological anomaly. The fan community has a deep polarized relationship with Tel Uvirith. It is widely considered the coolest stronghold because of the sheer power fantasy. You get Dwemer Centurions patrolling your perimeter if you complete the right quests. You have a dungeon that actually spawns enemies for you to harvest souls from. It is a house designed for the active practice of god-complex wizardry. However, practically speaking, it is a nightmare. It is in the middle of nowhere. There is no fast travel service nearby, unless you use Mark Prost Recall. Every time you want to buy groceries, you have to trek across a lava field. Living here requires a specific mindset. You're not a hero of the people, you're a magister. You have likely murdered your rivals to get here. You have plotted, schemed, and enslaved. Tel Uvirith is a monument to social Darwinism. The selectives of the council only respect strength, and your house is a projection of that strength. But it is lonely at the top, literally. The upper chamber where you sleep is high above the ash storms, but it is a solitude that borders on imprisonment. Consider the staff. Your retainers live in small, separate pods at the base of the tower. You look down on them, quite literally. You are the spider in the web, the king of the ash hill. But if you run out of magicka potions, if you get sick, you are a long, long way from a healer. And if the lava flows shift, as they often do in Vvardenfell, you might wake up to find your front porch melting. There is also the constant threat of House Redoran and House Hlaalo. In the Morrowind Stronghold questline, the other houses don't just send a strongly worded letter, they send kill squads. Living in Tel Uvirith means you are constantly under siege. You're a squatter on land the other great houses claim. You have to be ready to defend your mushroom with lethal force at a moment's notice. It's not just a home, it's a hardened military target. And let's talk about the soundscape. The Molag Amur region is geologically active. The ground rumbles, steam vents hiss, the wind howls through the obsidian spires. Inside the tower, these sounds are muffled by the thick fungal walls, creating a womb-like throbbing quiet. It is the silence of a heartbeat. Some players report it being almost too quiet, the kind of silence where you start to hear your own thoughts a little too clearly. And for a Telvanni wizard dabbling in forbidden magic, that is a dangerous thing. Tel Uvirith is the ultimate rejection of normal life. It rejects gravity, it rejects society, it rejects traditional architecture. It is a home for the alien, the outcast, the genius, and the madman. It asks the question, what is the point of being a powerful wizard if you have to walk upstairs like a commoner? But as you float in your pod, surrounded by your stolen Dwemer artifacts and your soul gems, watching the red glow of the lava through the organic membrane of your window, you have to admit, it's a bit damp. And the smell of sulphur never really goes away. Now, if you think living in a mushroom in a volcanic wasteland is cutting edge, let's take it a step further. What if your house wasn't just in a bad neighbourhood, but in a bad dimension? We are leaving the mortal plane entirely. Pack your soul gems and say your prayers to Archay, because we are stepping into a portal. We are going to Wraithhome. We have explored the cursed, the haunted, and the alien. We have lived in fungal towers and underwater caves, but every property we have visited so far has shared one common, comforting trait. They were all located on Nirn. They were all part of the mortal plane, subject to the laws of time, gravity, and the sun. Now we are abandoning those creature comforts. We are tearing a hole in the fabric of reality to visit a property that shouldn't exist, let alone be listed on the market. We are stepping through the portal into Wraithhome. This estate, available to the wealthy elite of the Elder Scrolls Online, is not located in a city or a wilderness. Technically, the entrance is found near the Crypt of Hearts in Rivenspire, a region already known for its gloomy Gothic atmosphere. But the house itself? It exists in a pocket realm of Cold Harbour. For those unversed in the cosmology of the Orbis, Cold Harbour is the plane of Oblivion ruled by Molag Bal. It is a mirrored, twisted version of Nirn, a place of desolation, slavery, and eternal torment. The sky is not blue, it is a swirling vortex of bruised purple and charcoal. The ground is cold sludge. The air smells of burning ozone and despair. And yet, someone looked at this hellscape and thought, you know what this place needs? A luxury mansion with a view of the torture chambers. Wraithhome is a massive, sprawling structure built in a style that can best be described as Daedric Gothic. It features towering spires of black stone, glowing blue windows that look like unblinking eyes, and stained glass that depict scenes of, well, let's just say they aren't scenes of puppies playing in a meadow. To enter your home, you must literally leave the world of the living. Here is the core in-game fact that defines the absurdity of this real estate. You are paying a premium, in crowns or gold, to live in a realm designed specifically to maximise suffering. Unlike the abandoned house in Markarth, where Molag Bal is an unwanted intruder, in Wraithhome, you're moving into his subdivision. You are his tenant. The water features in the garden aren't filled with refreshing spring water. They are filled with azure plasma, the raw, chaotic substance from which Daedra are formed and reformed. You're landscaping with the primordial soup of demons. The scale of Wraithhome is intimidating. It is one of the largest homes in the game, a cavernous, empty cathedral of voidstone. Stepping into the main hall feels like walking into the mouth of a beast. The acoustics are terrifying. A footstep echoes for what feels like an eternity. It is a house designed for a giant, or a god, not a mortal. When you place a chair or a bed in one of these massive rooms, it looks comically small, like a dollhouse creating sitting in a mausoleum. An obscure lore tidbit regarding this pocket realm suggests that these bubbles of Coldharbour are often created as mockeries of Nirn. Molag Bal, the Prince of Domination, cannot create. He can only imitate and corrupt. Wraithhome is likely his twisted interpretation of a mortal palace. The architecture mimics Ayleid or Imperial designs, but sharpens the edges, darkens the stone, and removes all warmth. By living there, you are participating in this cosmic mockery. You are the punchline to a Daedric joke about mortal vanity. The amenities are strictly for the necromantically inclined. The house comes with pre-installed sacrificial altars and cages. It is a turnkey solution for the aspiring lich. But consider the practicalities of life here. There is no sun. There is no day-night cycle. There is only the eternal oppressive gloom of Coldharbour. Your circadian rhythm would be shattered within a week. You would lose all sense of time, existing in a perpetual frozen twilight, and the cold. It is called Coldharbour for a reason. Lore descriptions of the plane speak of a chill that bypasses the flesh and freezes the spirit. No amount of fireplaces, which burn with cold blue fire here, can truly warm a house that sits in a dimension of entropy. You're trying to heat a mansion in the absolute zero of a god's hatred. The fan community treats Wraithhome as the ultimate flex. It is expensive, hard to decorate, and incredibly edgy. It is the home of the player who wants to show off their Emperor title or their Necromancer class achievements. But there is a debate about the implications for the Vestige, the player character. After saving the world from the Plane Meld, after defeating Molag Bal, why would you turn around and buy a summer home in his backyard? Is it an act of defiance? I beat you, so now I'm going to live on your lawn? Or is it a sign that the hero has been touched too deeply by the void? Decorating Wraithhome is a challenge in lighting. The ambient light is blue and sickly. If you try to bring in warm yellow lights from Nirn, they clash horribly with the atmosphere. The house resists warmth. It wants to be dark. It wants to be cold. Players often lean into this, filling the space with torture devices, skeletons, and dark magic crystals. It becomes a museum of horrors. But let's talk about the isolation. In Tel Uvirith, you were lonely, but you were still on Vvardenfell. In Wraithhome, you are infinitely removed from humanity. If you scream, not even the physics of sound work the same way. You are surrounded by the soul shriven, the hollowed-out remnants of mortals who have been enslaved by Molag Bal. They are your neighbours, the shuffling, moaning husks of the damned. Not exactly the kind of people you invite over for a sweet roll. Furthermore, there is the lingering danger of the plane itself. Coldharbour is hostile to mortal life. The air is toxic. The water is plasma. The plants are carnivorous. By living here, you are constantly shielding yourself against the environment. If your magical protections were to fail for even a moment, the plane would try to consume you. It is a high-stress living situation. You are camping in a nuclear reactor. Wraithhome represents the ultimate detachment from humanity. To live here is to say that you no longer belong to Nirn. You have transcended, or descended, beyond the need for sunlight, green grass, and friendly faces. You have chosen power and aesthetics over your own humanity. It is a palace, yes, but it is a palace of the dead. As you stand on one of the floating islands that make up your backyard, looking out into the swirling void of the sky, watching the lightning arc across the purple clouds, you realise the ultimate price of this real estate. You haven't just bought a house. You have exiled yourself. You are the king of a dead rock, ruling over silence and shadows. But perhaps this is too high concept, too metaphysical. Perhaps you don't want a dimension of hell or a mushroom tower. Maybe you just want a place in the city close to the markets and the tavern. But be careful what you wish for. Sometimes the only affordable housing in the city is located where the sun never shines, and the only running water is sewage. We are heading back to Skyrim, to the city of Riften, to descend into the Ratway. We descend from the cosmic horror of Coldharbour and the metaphysical isolation of Wraithhome to something far more grounded, far grittier, and infinitely smellier. We are returning to the mortal plane, specifically to the southeastern corner of Skyrim, to the city of Riften. It is a city of autumn leaves, mist-shrouded lakes, and deep-seated corruption. But we are not looking at the wooden properties on the surface, with their charming decks overlooking Lake Honrich. No, we are heading underground. We are venturing into the Ratway to tour Shadowfoot Sanctum. In the real estate world, agents often use the term garden level to describe a basement apartment. Shadowfoot Sanctum, a property added via the Creation Club, stretches this euphemism to its absolute breaking point. This is not a garden level, this is a sewer level. To even reach the front door of your new luxury estate, you must navigate the notorious Ratway, a subterranean labyrinth of crumbling brick, dripping pipes, and hostile vagrants. Here is the core in-game fact that defines the daily commute for the owner of Shadowfoot Sanctum. Your walk to the mailbox involves fighting for your life. The Ratway is not a passive hallway, it is a dungeon. It is populated by violent lowlifes, skeevers the size of dogs, and the occasional Thalmor agent searching for Esbern. Every time you want to go home to drop off some loot, you have to sprint past Jan the Fist, or get into a fistfight with a wood elf named Draf. Most homeowners complain about traffic. Here, the traffic tries to mug you. Once you actually reach the door, nestle deep in the damp gloom of the tunnels, and step inside, the interior is surprisingly posh. It is furnished in the style of the Thieves' Guild cistern. Rich rugs, warm lighting, and carved wooden furniture. It has an alchemy lab, an enchanting table, and plenty of mannequins. It tries very, very hard to convince you that you are in a high-end secret lair, but you cannot escape the reality of where you are. You're living in the drainage system of a medieval city. Riften is built on a lake. The canals that run through the city above are essentially open sewers where the residents dump their waste. Gravity does the rest. Shadowfoot Sanctum is located directly beneath this runoff. Let's address the sensory elephant in the room, the smell. The game engine cannot render scent, which is a mercy, because if it could, Shadowfoot Sanctum would be uninhabitable. You're surrounded by stagnant water, rotting timber, and the biological waste of an entire city. The humidity would be 100% all the time. Mold would not just be a problem, it would be a roommate. Your clothes would never dry, your bread would go green in an hour. You're breathing in a cocktail of methane and mildew every night. An obscure lore tidbit that adds a layer of historical filth to this location concerns the construction of the Ratway itself. It is believed to be the remnants of old Riften. Like many cities in Tamriel, Riften has been built over and on top of its previous iterations. The stonework in the Ratway is ancient, predating the wooden structures above. By living here, you are inhabiting the ruins of a failed version of the city, a version that likely sank into the mud or was abandoned due to flooding. You're squatting in the city's discarded past. The fan community often debates the logistics of the secret entrance. Shadowfoot Sanctum comes with a convenient hatch that leads directly to the Riften docks, allowing you to bypass the Ratway combat if you choose. However, players point out that this underwater entrance implies the house is partially submerged. In a world where physics apply, the pressure of Lake Honrich pressing against your walls would be immense. A single crack in the masonry, a single leak in the seal, and your luxury penthouse becomes a tomb of drowning water. You are living in a submarine made of bricks. There is also the matter of the neighbours. Shadowfoot Sanctum is connected to the Ragged Flagon, the headquarters of the Thieves' Guild. On one hand, this is convenient if you are the guildmaster. You can pop next door to fence your stolen goods or get a new job from Vex. On the other hand, you are living next door to a criminal syndicate. The Ragged Flagon is a bar for the worst people in Skyrim. The noise, the brawls, and the constant stream of wanted criminals passing through your neighbourhood do not make for a peaceful domestic life. And let's not forget your other neighbour, Galathil, the face sculptor. She's a darker, stranger figure who performs flesh magic in the corner of the Ragged Flagon. Living adjacent to an unlicensed magical plastic surgeon who operates in a sewer adds a distinct body horror vibe to the area. You might wake up to hear the screams of someone having their bone structure rearranged just through the wall. Shadowfoot Sanctum is the ultimate bachelor pad for the edgy rogue. It screams, "I am mysterious and I dwell in the shadows," but practically it is a health hazard. The skeevers, the giant rats of Skyrim, are a constant plague in the Ratway. They carry ataxia, rock joint, and other diseases. In a normal house, a mouse in the pantry is a nuisance. In Shadowfoot Sanctum, A skeever in the pantry is a combat encounter that requires a sword and a potion of cure disease. Then there is the psychological toll of living without sunlight. We discussed this with Severin Manor and Wraithhome, but in the Ratway, it feels dirtier. It's not the noble darkness of a mushroom tower or the magical darkness of Oblivion. It's the oppressive, claustrophobic darkness of being buried alive under garbage. You are a bottom feeder. You have voluntarily placed yourself at the lowest point of the social and physical hierarchy. The penthouse moniker is a cruel joke. A penthouse is at the top, offering light and air. Shadowfoot Sanctum is the antithesis. It is a sub-house. It represents the glamour of the criminal life, shiny on the inside but surrounded by filth on the outside. You can hang your jagged crown of Baron's Ire on the wall and display your nightingale armour, but at the end of the day, you are still sleeping in a sewer. The sheer cost of the home, 7,500 gold, is also a point of contention. For that price, you could buy Breeze Home in Whiterun, with fresh air, a nice fire, and neighbours who aren't trying to stab you for a sweet roll. Paying premium prices to live like a beggar is a special kind of irony reserved for the Dragonborn. Shadowfoot Sanctum forces you to ask yourself, how much are you willing to suffer for your aesthetic? If your aesthetic is King of the Rats, then this is perfect. But for anyone who enjoys hygiene, dry socks, and the ability to breathe through their nose without gagging, it is a hard pass. As you lie in your damp bed, listening to the dripping water and the scuttling of claws in the walls, you have to wonder if the Thieves Guild didn't just prank you. They took the new guy, showed him a dressed-up storage closet in the sewer, and charged him a fortune for it. And you, the legendary hero, thanked them for the privilege. But perhaps you are tired of hiding, perhaps you're tired of the damp and the dark. You want a fortress, you want walls of stone, a gatehouse and a private army. You want to be a lord. Well, we have just the place for you. We are heading back to Cyrodiil, to the Clovian Highlands west of Coral. Raise the portcullis and sound the horn, because we are laying siege to Battlehorn Castle. We leave the dank sewers of Riften and emerge, blinking, into the bright sunlight of the Clovian Highlands. We travel west of Coral, through rolling hills dotted with wildflowers and ancient ruins. The air is fresh, smelling of grass and stone. In the distance, rising majestically against the backdrop of the mountains, stands Battlehorn Castle. This is the dream. This is the ultimate property fantasy for any player who grew up reading knightly romances. It isn't a house, it's a fortress. It has towers, battlements, a great hall, a smithy, and even a secret grotto. It is a symbol of absolute power and authority. But as with every property on our list, there is a catch. Most homes require a down payment of gold. Battlehorn Castle requires a down payment of warfare. The moment you arrive at your potential new estate, you're not greeted by a real estate agent. You're greeted by a siege. A band of marauders is actively attacking the castle. The current lord, Lord Kelvin, is fighting for his life on the ramparts. This is the core in-game fact. You inherit this castle by trial of combat. You draw your sword, rush into the fray, and help defend the walls. Tragically, or conveniently depending on your perspective, Lord Kelvin dies in the skirmish. With his dying breath, or through his will found on his body, the deed passes to you. Here are the keys, Fate says. Also, wipe the blood off the drawbridge. Once the marauders are dispatched and you take possession, the castle is yours. And it is massive. It feels regal. You can hire a full staff, a cook, a vintner, a smith, a trainer, and even a taxidermist to stuff your kills. You have men-at-arms who patrol the halls saluting you as lord or lady. It feeds the ego like no other home in the Elder Scrolls series. But let's look closer at the reality of castle life. Battlehorn Castle is huge, which means it is incredibly empty. Even with the staff, the sheer volume of space is overwhelming. The Great Hall is drafty and cold. The footsteps of your guards echo ominously. It feels less like a home and more like a public museum where you're allowed to sleep. Then there is the issue of the skeletal staff, and I don't mean undead, though there is a lich in the basement which we will get to. I mean the sheer logistical nightmare of running a fortress. In the game you pay a one-time fee for upgrades. In reality, the upkeep on a structure this size would be astronomical. The roof alone would require a constant team of masons. Heating a stone castle in the Clovian winter, you'd need a forest's worth of firewood every week. You're not just a homeowner, you are a CEO of a failing infrastructure project. But the real curse of Battlehorn Castle lies beneath it. Like an onion of horror, the layers peel back to reveal something rotten. Hidden behind a false wall in the private quarters is the grotto. This isn't a wine cellar. It is a natural cavern that houses a terrifying secret. A lich named Ahrihan. An obscure lore tidbit reveals that Ahrihan isn't just a random monster. He was a powerful battle mage who was sealed away by the castle's original builders. The castle wasn't built just to keep enemies out. It was built to keep him in. You're living on top of a containment facility for an undead sorcerer. While the quest allows you to defeat him, or bind him in some modded versions, the fact remains, your basement was a prison for a monster. And let's not forget the neighbours. The marauders who attacked the castle weren't a one-time random encounter. They have a permanent encampment nearby at Battlehorn. They want this castle. They believe it belongs to them. Living here means living in a state of perpetual low-level warfare. You can never truly relax. Every time you ride out to pick up milk and coral, you have to check the horizon for siege engines. The fan community loves Battlehorn for its secrets. There is a giant taxidermied bear you can install. There is a secret passage. There is the Sword of the Crusader, if you have the Knights of the Nine expansion nearby. But there is also a sense of melancholy. The castle is old. It has seen centuries of violence, the walls are scarred. The previous lord died in front of you. You are just the latest in a long line of occupants who will likely die defending these cold stones. Furthermore, the isolation is palpable. Unlike a city house where you can hear the bustle of the street, here you only hear the wind and the clanking of your guard's armour. It is a lonely existence. You are the lord of the manor, separated from the common folk by thick walls and a heavy gate. It enforces a social distance that can be alienating. You sit at the head of your long dining table, eating a venison chop prepared by your personal chef, completely alone. There is also a strange, often overlooked detail, the dragon sword of Laenlin. This unique weapon found in the castle hints at a connection to the city of Laenlin in Hammerfell. It suggests a history of exotic travel or war, a reminder that the previous owners had lives, histories and tragedies that you have simply overwritten. You are an interloper in your own home. Battlehorn Castle represents the burden of command. It gives you the power you craved, the guards, the walls, the title. But it strips away the intimacy of a home. It is a military installation. It is a target. And at night, when the torches flicker in the drafty corridors and the wind howls through the arrow slits, you realise that a castle is designed for war, not for peace. You're safe from the wolves, yes, but you're trapped in a cage of your own making. So we have gone from sewers to castles, from mushroom towers to Daedric realms. We have seen every manner of horror that the real estate market of Tamriel has to offer, but we have saved the most personal, the most tragic, and the most definitively cursed home for last. We are returning to the Dark Brotherhood, to the city of Cheydinhal. We are going to visit a home that became a tomb, not because of ghosts or monsters, but because of an order given by a trusted friend. We end our journey in the Nibene Basin, in the picturesque city of Cheydinhal. With its Dunmer-influenced architecture, winding rivers and willow trees draping over the water, it is arguably the most beautiful city in Cyrodiil. It feels artistic, refined, and peaceful. But as we have learned tonight, appearances in Tamriel are always deceiving. In the basement of an unassuming, boarded-up house on the edge of town, behind a heavy black door that asks the riddle, "What is the colour of night?" lies the Cheydinhal Sanctuary. This is the home of the Dark Brotherhood in Cyrodiil. And for many players of The Elder Scrolls IV, Oblivion, it is the most beloved home in the entire series. Unlike the cold halls of Battlehorn or the damp caves of Deepscorn, the Cheydinhal Sanctuary is warm. It is cosy. A fire roars in the central pit. There are training rooms, a library, and a living quarters where the members sleep and eat together. When you first join, you are welcomed not as a grunt but as a sibling. Ochiva, the mistress of the sanctuary, greets you with genuine warmth. Vicente Valtieri, a vampire who has lived for centuries, treats you with courtly respect and even offers you the dark gift of immortality. Tainava, Gogran Gro Bolmog, Antoinetta Marie, they become your friends. They cheer your successes. They offer advice on your contracts. They are a family of murderers, yes, but they are your family. This brings us to the most heartbreaking core in-game fact on our list. The Cheydinhal Sanctuary is the site of the purification. Midway through the questline, you're summoned by Lucian Lachance, the Speaker of the Black Hand. He tells you that there is a traitor in the sanctuary. He promotes you to the rank of silencer, and then he gives you your orders. You must go back to Cheydinhal, you must enter the sanctuary, and you must kill everyone inside. This isn't a battle against bandits or monsters. This is the systematic execution of the people who welcomed you. You have to kill a Cheever, who called you sister or brother. You have to kill Vicente, who might have turned you into a vampire. You have to kill Mirage Dar, the Khajiit merchant who finally started to be nice to you. You are ordered to purge your own home. The quest, the purification, is a masterclass in emotional storytelling. As you walk back into the sanctuary, the atmosphere is unchanged. They greet you happily. "Hail, Silencer," they say, proud of your promotion. They have no idea that you are there to end them. The betrayal is intimate. You strike them down in their beds, at the dinner table, in the training room. The home that was once a refuge becomes a slaughterhouse of your own making. An obscure lore tidbit that makes this tragedy even sharper is the identity of the actual traitor. It wasn't Ochiva, it wasn't Vicente, it was Mathieu Bellamont, a member of the Black Hand itself, who wasn't even in the sanctuary. The purification was a trick, a manipulation. Lucien. Lachance was deceived, and in his paranoia he ordered the death of an entire loyal family for nothing. The sacrifice was meaningless. The blood on your hands served no purpose other than to weaken the Brotherhood from within. Once the deed is done, the sanctuary changes. The warmth is gone, the laughter is silenced. The bodies disappear, replaced by generic Dark Brotherhood murderers. Faceless NPCs who wander the halls with no personality, no dialogue, and no connection to you. They are ghosts in the machine, pale imitations of the friends you murdered. The fan community still discusses the trauma of this quest. Many players refuse to do it, stopping their progression in the Dark Brotherhood permanently just to keep Achieva and Vicente alive. Others created mods to save them. It speaks to the power of the writing that a group of digital assassins could evoke such loyalty. The loss of the Cheydinhal Sanctuary isn't a loss of property, it is a loss of connection. Even the amenities of the sanctuary become twisted reminders of what you did. The chest at the foot of your bed, once a safe place to store your gear, now feels like a coffin. The apple in the bowl on the table reminds you of the poisoned apple you might have used to kill a target, or perhaps one of your siblings. The training room is empty, save for the echoes of Gogrun's boasts about his axe. And there is Schema, the sanctuary's pet rat. He survives the purification. He skitters around the empty halls, the only living witness to your betrayal. Every time you see that rat, you're reminded that you are the monster who killed his owners. You're the predator who turned on the pack. Living in the Cheydinhal Sanctuary after the purification is an exercise in guilt. It is a hollow shell. You can still sleep there. You can still buy spells there. But the spirit of the place is dead. It stands as the ultimate cursed real estate because the curse isn't a ghost, a demon, or a necromancer. The curse is you. You destroyed the only place in Cyrodiil that accepted you for who you were. You traded love, twisted, dark assassin love, but love nonetheless, for a promotion and a horse named Shadowmere. And as you stand in the silence of that underground hall, listening to the crackle of the fire that no longer warms anyone, you have to ask yourself, was it worth it? The Cheydinhal Sanctuary teaches us the final, most brutal lesson of the housing market in Tamriel. A house is made of wood and stone, but a home is made of people. And when you remove the people, all you have left is a very expensive, very quiet tomb. So, from the haunted mansions of Anvil to the fungal towers of Morrowind, from the frozen stone of Markarth to the tragic silence of Cheydinhal, we have toured the places where heroes try to rest. We have seen that in this world, safety is an illusion, and comfort often comes with a terrible price. Perhaps, after all is said and done, the safest place to sleep is under the stars, by a campfire on the side of the road. At least there, the only monsters you have to worry about are the ones outside the light, not the ones living in the basement. And so, we have reached the end of our tour. We have walked through the doors of 15 houses, each holding a shadow, a secret, or a sorrow. We have travelled across the vast, dangerous, and beautiful continent of Tamriel, inspecting the floorboards for blood and checking the closets for skeletons. We have seen that even the bravest heroes, the ones who slay dragons and save worlds, cannot always find a peaceful place to lay their heads. But you are not in a haunted manor. You are not sleeping on a bed of cold stone or floating in a mushroom tower. You are safe. The walls around you are solid. The shadows in the corner of your room are just shadows, nothing more. There are no Daedric Princes waiting in your hallway. There are no dark secrets buried beneath your floor. The wind outside is just the wind, carrying the stories of the day away into the night. The hum of the world is slowing down, settling into a gentle rhythm, like the breathing of a sleeping giant. You can let go of the vigilance now. You don't need to guard the door. You don't need to check the locks again. The adventure is over for today. The loot has been stored, the map has been rolled up, and the fire has burned down to glowing embers. Let the imagery of those cursed houses fade. Let the stone and the ice and the ash dissolve into the soft darkness behind your eyelids. Picture instead a quiet, warm space. A space that is entirely your own, free of quests, free of danger, free of noise. Just peace, just stillness. Your breathing is slow and steady. Your body is heavy and relaxed. The world of Nirn is far away, waiting for you to return when you're ready. But for now, you're drifting into a place where the only law is the logic of dreams. Sweet dreams.